you for life, for blessings. Bless us today. Teach us from the scriptures how to be faithful. Teach us how to obey you. Pray this in Jesus' name. Amen. As backdrop to what we'll be discussing today, we're going to read Deuteronomy 25:50. This is about levirate marriage. This is about, let's just read it first. Deuteronomy 25, chapter 25, verse 5. If brothers dwell together, and one of them dies and has no son, the wife of the dead man shall not be married outside the family to a stranger. Her husband's brother shall go into her and take her as his wife, and perform the duty of a husband's brother to her. And the first son whom she bears shall succeed to the name of his dead brother. Succeed there meaning he will have the name. That's not succeed in terms of winning. It means to follow. Succeed. In the name of the dead brother. That his name may not be blotted out of Israel. So understand the cause of this. All right. The idea is that a line of a son, if a man has multiple sons, if the older brother dies, so that his name may not fall away from the world, his brother will take his former wife, his widow, as his own wife. And if the man does not wish to take his brother's wife, then his brother's wife shall go up to the gate, to the elders, and say, my husband's brother refuses to perpetuate his brother's name in Israel. He will not perform the duty of a husband's brother to me. And the elders of his city shall call him and speak to him, and if he persist, say, I do not wish to take her, then his brother's wife shall go up to him in the presence of the elders, and pull his sandal off his foot, and spit in his face. And she shall answer and say, so shall it be done to the man who does not build up his brother's house. And the name of his house shall be called in Israel the house of him who had his sandal pulled off. This, you might have a subheading in your Bible that calls this, my ESV has the laws concerning levirate marriage. Levirate. What does levirate stand for? Is this just for the tribe of Levi? If it was, it would be called Levitical. Right? You may know what this comes from. I had to look this up myself. I did not know. Levir, all right, too bad Nikita's not here, is the Latin word for brother-in-law. All right. Levirate marriage is the practice described here that the brother-in-law needs to marry the widow of his brother. So now you know that's Latin word. It looks like Levitical. It's not actually related at all. Blame the Romans. In Deuteronomy 25, in Leviticus 25 is not about marriage. Leviticus 25 is similar, but it is about land. All right. There is a concern in Deuteronomy that a person's line in Israel does not go away. I mean, God made a covenant with these people, all right? If some of the line of these people go away, that is actually a problem. Same way with land. So if you are an Israelite, can you sell your land to other Israelites? Yes. You are supposed to get that land back, either because you buy it back, or a family member buys it back, or in a year of Jubilee, you're supposed to get this back. Okay? So that's what Leviticus 25 is for. That also shows up in our main text for today that I'm going to take you to read it. Yeah.
It doesn't seem like a guy who's married gets a pass on this task, right?
Right. I would assume no. Yeah. Like I actually work on the assumption that the person who we'll really be talking about today is already married, though it doesn't say it explicitly that I can think of. But we'll get there in a minute. Yeah.
She marries her brother-in-law in order to bear a son and carry on her previous husband's name.
Mm-hmm.
Two brothers carry the same name, so it wouldn't be lost anyway, would it? Chip points out, okay, so if you have
a child of the son-in-law, all right, they have the same name,
Yeah,
right? And so what's the loss? The loss of the one who died, specifically.
possibly.
The one who died. Specifically his name, not necessarily all the way up to Abraham, right?
Okay.
Yeah. So it, because, yeah, it all goes up all the way back up to Abraham, but even the branches of the family tree are supposed to be maintained according to this law. Yeah.
But like we do last names in our culture that get passed from generation to generation, but they did like Joe, son of Lewis.
Yeah.
So
David and Jesse.
David and Jesse, which means David, son of Jesse. Yeah.
Absalom and David.
Mm-hmm. Yeah. Yeah, they didn't do last names. And so yeah, this would be referring to every branch of the tree. All right. The goal of this is try to keep any branch from name go away.
Is this also a way to protect like the widow, because the women wouldn't have any fortune, or like all of that would be passed on, whatever her husband had could be passed on to an heir, right? A male heir.
Yes.
Is that also to protect like
It is very much yes. It is in terms of practicality, it is very much a protection for the widow, for sure. As is the laws in Leviticus as well about land. It's a protection for the family, right? Like for example, if you're an Israelite and you are so poor you cannot survive, you may sell yourself into slavery, right? A relative can redeem you out, or you can redeem yourself out, which you make some money, or when the time of the Jubilee comes, they have to let you go anyway if they're going to follow the law. They never did that, but they should, right? And so all these particular laws, all of them were a practical benefit to the people there, for sure. Some of the laws, when I look at the Old Testament, I'm like, I don't know what the benefit of that one is. Like, why can't you eat this thing? Maybe it's food safety, maybe it's not, I don't know. In this particular case, it is most definitely a protection, right? Because if you lose your land, all right, then you lose your way to survive, because almost everybody's a farmer, all right? If you lose your husband and your children, you cannot support yourself. Even in your current age, if you lose your children, maybe you can support yourself. How? Good question. But when you're older, if you don't have children, you definitely can't support yourself if you're an aged woman, all right? So yeah, this was very much a protection for people. And these are interesting protections right here, because if you think about what's going on there in terms of land not being lost to the people, if you think about, do we think about that kind of thing today? All right? Did they apply this in the Middle Ages, where most of the land was owned by the rich? All right? Do we apply principles of this today, where private equity firms are gobbling up residential land? All right? Does it have an implication? Not our discussion point today. Our discussion point today, but something we're thinking about, is our discussion point today is two people, Boaz and Ruth. So if you would please turn to the book of Ruth. Ruth. We will read most of the book today and discuss some things as we go. The book of Ruth, which, for those of you who've read the book of Ruth, you might have already, when we read that, already thought of this book, because this is central to this particular story. In the days when the judges ruled, there was a famine in the land, and a man of Bethlehem in Judah went to sojourn in the country of Moab. He and his wife and his two sons. The name of the man was Elimelech, which probably means God is king. El is God, as Michael discussed recently, and Melech is king. So Elimelech, God is king. And the name of his wife, Naomi. And the names of his two sons were Mahlon and Chilion. They were Ephrathites from Bethlehem in Judah. Ephrathite and Bethlehemite, basically, as far as I can tell, mean the same thing. So these were people who lived in Bethlehem. They went to the country of Moab, and remained there. But Elimelech, the husband of Naomi, died, and she was left with her 2 sons. These took Moabite wives. The name of the one was Orpah, and the name of the other Ruth. They lived there about 10 years, and both Mahlon and Chilion died, so that the woman was left without her 2 sons and her husband. So now you've got a real problem. You've got 3 widows that are now endangered, right? You have Naomi, and you have the wife of Mahlon and the wife of Chilion. And then she arose with her daughters-in-law, Naomi, to return to the country of Moab, to return from the country of Moab. She was already there. For she had heard in the fields of Moab that Yahweh had visited his people and given them food. So she set out from the place where she was with her 2 daughters-in-law, and they went on the way to return to the land of Judah. But Naomi said to her daughters-in-law, "Go, return each of you to her mother's house. May Yahweh deal kindly with you, as you have dealt with the dead and with me. Yahweh grant that you may find rest, each of you, in the house of her husband." So she wishes that they would get married again. Then she kissed them, and they lifted up their voices and wept. And they said to her, "No, we will return with you to your people." But Naomi said, "Turn back, my daughters. Why will you go with me? Have I yet sons in my womb, that they may become your husbands? Turn back, my daughters. Go your way, for I am too old to have a husband. If I should say I have hope, even if I should have a husband this night and should bear sons, would you therefore wait till they were grown? Would you therefore refrain from marrying? No, my daughters, for it is exceedingly bitter to me for your sake, that the hand of Yahweh has gone out against me." Then they lifted up their voices and wept again. And Orpah kissed her mother-in-law, and Ruth clung to her. And she said, "See, your sister-in-law has gone back to her people and to her gods. Return after your sister-in-law." But Ruth said, "Do not urge me to leave you, or to return from following you. Where you go, I will go, and where you lodge, I will lodge. Your people shall be my people, and your God, my God. Where you die, I will die, and there I will be buried. May Yahweh do so to me, and more also, if anything but death parts me from you." And when Naomi saw that she was determined to go with her, she said no more. And so we now see the chief characteristic of Ruth, which is essentially faithfulness or loyalty to her family, to her mother-in-law. She says, I will follow your God. I will stay with you. I will be an aid to you ultimately, right? Until you're dead. So the 2 of them went on until they came to Bethlehem. And when they came to Bethlehem, the whole town was stirred because of them. And the women said, "Is this Naomi?" She said to them, "Do not call me Naomi. Call me Mara, for the Almighty has dealt very bitterly with me. I went away full, and Yahweh has brought me back empty. Why call me Naomi, when Yahweh has testified against me, and the Almighty has brought calamity upon me?" So Naomi returned, and Ruth the Moabite, her daughter-in-law, with her, who returned from the country of Moab, and they came to Bethlehem at the beginning of the barley harvest. The first chapter sets up essentially the setting of the whole story. We have 3 widows, now 2 widows. All right? Naomi is sad, bitter. She's old, right? She actually cannot have children. That's why she said earlier that I'm too old to have a husband, right? It's not that, I don't think that means it's impossible for me to get married. I'm so old, right? I think it's I can't solve this problem by getting married again and having more sons, all right? And even if I could, would it make sense for me to get married again and have a son, and then you wait, 16 to 18 to 20 years for you to have a husband? None of that makes sense, and which is why she tried to send it back, all right? But still, Ruth comes with him, and they come back to Bethlehem, right? That's the next part. They're going to go back. No, that is that part. We go back to Bethlehem, all right? And the setting is set for God to deliver this bitter woman and her daughter-in-law. Now, Naomi had a relative as her husband's, a worthy man of the clan of Elimelech, whose name was Boaz. So in the same clan. Do we know what clan this is? No. Clan? This is Judah. This actually becomes very important there. And Ruth the Moabite said to Naomi, "Let me go to the field and glean among the ears of grain after him. In whose sight I shall find favor." And she said to her, "Go, my daughter." So she set out and went and gleaned in the field after the reapers. And she happened to come to the part of the field belonging to Boaz, who was of the clan of Elimelech. And behold, Boaz came from Bethlehem, and he said to the reapers, "Yahweh be with you." And they answered, "Yahweh bless you." Then Boaz said to his young man, who was in charge of the reapers, "Whose young woman is this?" Right? Because he would probably know them all, the people that would be in his fields. And strange young woman here. Right? Who does she belong to? Why is she here? Right? And the servant who was in charge of the reapers answered, "She is the young Moabite woman who came back with Naomi from the country of Moab." She said, "Please let me glean and gather among the sheaves after the reapers." So she came, and she has continued from early morning until now, except for a short rest. What do we see? Well, we see actually the second main character coming in, or I guess the third, since she called Naomi and Ruth both main characters. Really, this is all going to, if you know the story, revolve around primarily Ruth and this man right here, Boaz. We learned something else about Ruth when she comes back. Ruth is not a freeloader, right? She did not come back with Naomi thinking, "I'm just going to be able to somehow survive based on my former marriage to her son." Actually, Ruth is here working really hard, right? I think that's why the story has this mention here of Ruth. What's she doing? Well, since she came, she has continued from early morning until now, except for a short rest. Right? So Ruth is working hard, trying to get food. Then Boaz says to Ruth, "Now listen, my daughter." This starts setting up that Boaz is an older man, right? When he says, "Who's this young lady?" He's not a young man talking about a young lady. He's an older man talking about a young lady. And he says here, "My daughter," younger. "Do not go glean in another field or leave this one, but keep close to my young women. Let your eyes be on the field that they are reaping and go after them. Have I not charged the young men not to touch you? And when you are thirsty, go to the vessels and drink what the young men have drawn." And she fell on her face, bowing to the ground, and said to him, "Why have I found favor in your eyes, that I should take notice of me, since I am a foreigner?" But Boaz answered her, "All that you have done for your mother-in-law since the death of your husband has been fully told to me, and how you left your father and mother and your native land and came to a people that you did not know before. Yahweh repay you for what you have done, and a full reward be given to you by Yahweh, the God of Israel, under whose wings you have come to take refuge." Then she said, "I have found favor in your eyes, my Lord, for you have comforted me and spoken kindly to your servant, though I am not one of your servants." And at the mealtime, Boaz said to her, "Come here and eat some bread and dip your morsel in the wine." So she sat beside the reapers, and he passed to her and roasted grain, and she ate until she was satisfied, and she had some left over. When she rose to glean, Boaz instructed his young men, saying, "Let her glean even among the sheaves, and do not reproach her. And also pull out some from the bundles for her, and leave it for her to glean, and do not rebuke her." And at this point, we have a pretty good character sketch of Boaz. All right? I like this very interesting contrast. He says, verse 12, "Yahweh repay you for what you have done." All right? And then what does he do? Right? He does it. He repays her for what she's done. Right? Well, does he not depend on God? Actually, that's not the lesson to pull from here, right? The lesson to pull from here is he is actually God's agent to do that thing. All right? He prays for that thing, and then he does what he can. And so he leaves extra produce for her. Leaves some extra stuff lying around, right? So she can pick it up, and even let her just pull from the sheaves. All right? Very kind man. helping someone that he probably could have gotten away with not helping. Verse 17. So she gleaned in the field until evening. And she, just for sake of time, we'll skip to the end of this chapter here. She gathered a lot of food. Somewhere between like 29 and 50 pounds of food from this, right? Which is a lot of barley. And she goes back to Naomi. And Naomi says in verse 20, "May he be blessed by Yahweh, whose kindness has not forsaken the living or dead." Naomi also said to her, "The man is a close relative of ours, one of our redeemers." And at this point, we get to live our marriage, right? One of our redeemers. In other words, somebody who can marry, all right, and perpetuate the name. Does it make sense for somebody like Boaz to marry Naomi and perpetuate the name? Nope, it won't work, all right? The idea is Naomi is likely too old to bear children, all right? How can Naomi be redeemed? Through the daughter-in-law, all right? And so she's not talking about herself. She is talking about Ruth. Verse 21. And Ruth the Moabite said, "Besides, he said to me, 'You shall keep close to my young men until they have finished all my harvest.'" So it's the beginning of barley, all right? So this is not a one-time thing. He has already told to her that she can stay and keep coming back to get the sustenance she needs. And Naomi said to Ruth, her daughter-in-law, "It is good, my daughter, that you go out with his young women, lest in another field you be assaulted." So she kept close to the young women of Boaz, waiting until the end of the barley and wheat harvest, and she lived with her mother-in-law. Now in the story, we have a big change. Chapter 3. Then Naomi, her mother-in-law, said to her, "My daughter, should I not seek rest for you, that it may be well with you? Is not Boaz our relative, with whose young women you were? See, he is winnowing barley tonight at the threshing floor. Wash, therefore, and anoint yourself, and put on your cloak, and go down to the threshing floor. But do not make yourself known to the man until he has finished eating and drinking. And when he lies down, observe the place where he lies. Then go and uncover his feet and lie down, and he will tell you what to do." And she replied, "All that you say, I will do." Once again, Ruth being faithful to her mother-in-law. So she went down to the threshing floor and did just as her mother-in-law had commanded her. And when Boaz had eaten and drunk, and his heart was merry, he went to lie down at the end of the heap of grain. Right? No hotels, not his house. Right? I feel like people used to sleep outside a lot more than we do. I haven't slept outside for a very long time. At midnight, the man was startled and turned over, and behold, a woman lay at his feet. He said, "Who are you?" And she answered, "I am Ruth, your servant. Spread your wings over your servant, for you are a redeemer." When it talks there in verse 4, but when he lies down, observe the place where he lies. Then go and uncover his feet and lie down. All right? This is probably a sign of uncovering feet means I would like to marry you. All right? I would like to be joined to you. All right? Whether this is just covering his feet, covering parts of his legs, don't know. All right? But this is a sign. All right? The Moabite lady goes there. She uncovers his feet and legs, and that's a sign that says, "Let's get married." All right? Now, notice this is not a romantic love thing. All right? That's not what's going on here. She even says it there. All right? You're my redeemer. All right? She is invoking there the law of levirate marriage. Right? Now, I want you to know, it's not always in the scriptures that somebody actually wants to do this. All right? Because whenever you do this, all right, you are now at that point splitting your inheritance. All right? You now have to pay for somebody else to help keep them alive. All right? And from a financial perspective, all right, this is potentially really problematic, as we shall see here in a moment. Verse 10, and he said, and this would be, of course, Boaz, may you be blessed by Yahweh, my daughter. You have made this last kindness greater than the first, in that you have not gone after young men, whether poor or rich. Once again, establishing Boaz is an old guy. And now, my daughter, do not fear. I will do for you all that you ask, for all my fellow townsmen know that you are a worthy woman. And now it is true that I am a redeemer. So, is Boaz willing to do this thing that he is potentially supposed to do? Yes, because it isn't clear yet from the story. Boaz is a faithful follower of Yahweh. It's what we do, I will do it. Yet, verse 12, there is a redeemer nearer than I. Remember, leveret has to do with brother-in-law. There is a closer relative, all right? So Boaz is likely not the brother-in-law, right? He's a cousin or something, all right? There is a closer relative to Elimelech. And so he says, there is a redeemer nearer than I, remain tonight. And in the morning, if he will redeem you, good, let him do it. But if he is not willing to redeem you, then as Yahweh lives, I will redeem you. Lie down until the morning. So she lies down into the morning and then goes back to Naomi. Chapter 4. And now Boaz had gone up to the gate and sit down there. And behold, the Redeemer of whom Boaz had spoken came by. Not mentioned. Maybe it's because this would be embarrassing for him later. I don't know, but his name is not mentioned. And he turned aside and sat down, and he took 10 of the elders of the city and said, sit down here. So they sat down. He needs witnesses at this point. Boaz is going to do a transaction. It's not like they have paper, court reporters, anything like that, right? So he grabs people to witness this transaction. Then he said to the Redeemer, Naomi, who has come back from the country of Moab, is selling the parcel of land that belonged to our relative, Elimelech. So I thought I would tell you of it and say, buy it in the presence of those sitting here, in the presence of the elders of my people. If you will redeem it, redeem it. But if you will not, tell me that I may know. For there is no one beside you to redeem it, and I come after you. All right? And so, selling the land, right? The land is not supposed to be sold outside of families or whatever, but they're in the same family, all right? And somebody's got to take over that land. It's not like Naomi can work on it. Right? And so, where would it go? Well, naturally, it would go to someone else in the family, right? And it would go to the closest relative. So he gets a choice, all right? So Boaz gives him the choice. Do you want to do it? And what does he want to do? He said, I will redeem it. There are strings attached. Then Boaz said, the day you buy the field from the hand of Naomi, you also acquire Ruth, the Moabite, the widow of the dead, in order to perpetuate the name of the dead in his inheritance. And then the Redeemer said, no, I cannot redeem it for myself, lest I impair my own inheritance. Take my right of redemption yourself, for I cannot redeem it. I guess he doesn't feel like he is financially stable enough to do that. I will impair my own inheritance. Or is he just flat out being disobedient? I don't know. Doesn't say, all right? But it's not super fun. Yeah, I'll buy the land. Nope. I don't want to take the one. That messes with inheritance stuff. And not willing to help in that regard. Verse 7. Now this was the custom in former times in Israel concerning redeeming and exchanging, to confirm a transaction. The one drew off his sandal and gave it to another, and this was the manner of attesting in Israel. Now remember what the sandal thing was in Deuteronomy 25? All right? If he refused to do it, take his sandal and spit in his face. All right? And essentially curse him. All right? In this case, it's, we're going to make this deal. All right? And that's it. I take it as a sort of surety, I guess, of a pledge, all right? Of a, here's proof. Then again, he has witnesses. I don't know. It was the custom. And I would assume, such sandals wouldn't be mass produced. Like, a lot of us might have the same Nikes. But I also wouldn't think they would be particularly identifiable. Regardless, that was the way. And one drew off his sandal and gave it to the other. And when the Redeemer said to Boaz, buy it for yourself, he drew off his sandal. And Boaz said to the elders and all the people, "You are witnesses this day that I have bought from the hand of Naomi all this belonged to Elimelech, that belonged to Chilion and to Mahlon, also Ruth the Moabite, the widow of Mahlon. I have bought to be my wife, to perpetuate the name of the dead in his inheritance, that the name of the dead may not be cut off from among his brothers, from the gate of his native place. You are witnesses this day." Then all the people who were at the gate and the elders said, "We are witnesses. May Yahweh make the woman who is coming into your house like Rachel and Leah, who together built up the house of Israel. May she be fruitful," right? May she have many children, right? Important children also, but she will. "May you act worthily in Ephrathah, and be renowned in Bethlehem. And may your house be like the house of Perez, whom Tamar bore to Judah, because of the offspring that Yahweh will give you by this young woman." Remember Perez and Judah and Tamar? Right? It's actually relevant for this law. Right? Remember the story there where Tamar was married to one of Judah's sons? Remember that? And he died. All right? And what was he supposed to do? Judah was supposed to take care of this woman. All right? No, don't want to. All right? But she pretends she's a prostitute. Judah goes. She gets pregnant. Perez. Right? That's what we're referring to. Judah was not doing what he was supposed to do. And may they be like Perez. All right? Perez did nothing wrong here. And did Perez have a line after that? Yes, actually. We'll get to that. Verse 13. So Boaz took Ruth, and she became his wife. And he went into her, and Yahweh gave her conception, and she bore a son. Then the woman said to Naomi, "Blessed be Yahweh, who has not left you this day without a redeemer. And may his name be renowned in Israel. He shall be to you a restorer of life and the nourisher of your old age, for your daughter-in-law who loves you, who is more to you than 7 sons, has given birth to him." Then Naomi took the child and laid him on her lap and became his nurse. And the women of the neighborhood gave him a name, saying, "A son has been born to Naomi." They named him Obed. He was the father of Jesse, the father of David. Now these are the generations of Perez. Perez fathered Hezron, Hezron fathered Ram, Ram fathered Amminadab, Amminadab fathered Nahshon, Nahshon fathered Salmon, Salmon fathered Boaz, Boaz fathered Obed, Obed fathered Jesse, and Jesse fathered David. If you would please turn to the book of Matthew. Matthew chapter 1. The book of the genealogy of Jesus Christ, the son of David, the son of Abraham. Abraham was the father of Isaac, and Isaac the father of Jacob, and Jacob the father of Judah and his brothers, and Judah the father of Perez. There we go. Perez and Zerah by Tamar, and Perez the father of Hezron, and Hezron the father of Ram, and Ram the father of Amminadab, and Amminadab the father of Nahshon, and Nahshon the father of Salmon, and Salmon the father of Boaz by Rahab, and Boaz the father of Obed by Ruth. That's 2 foreigners right there. Rahab and Ruth. And Obed the father of Jesse, and Jesse the father of David, the king. And ultimately, where do we go? We get down to the end. Verse 17. So all the generations of Abraham to David were 14 generations. From David to the deportation to Babylon, and 587, shortly before. 14 generations. And from the deportation to Babylon to Christ, 14 generations. All right? So Boaz and Ruth make it into, and Perez, right? All these people are talking about, except for the unnamed redeemer, or potential redeemer. make it into the genealogy of Christ. Some things to note about the Moabitess, Ruth. Okay? She was faithful. All right? She was faithful and she was a servant to her mother-in-law. All right? What about Boaz? He was kind. All right? He was kind, and he let her gather. He gave her free food. Right? Let her take from the sheep. That's just giving away stuff. All right? He did that. And then, even at a financial detriment to himself, all right, he did this. Right? He took Ruth under his wings. The Bible has lots of stories of big climactic things that people do that are faithful. You see those stories, and they're very inspiring. Recently, we talked about Elijah. All right, I mean, he had some faith problems sometimes. All right, but you know what? He did great things. All right. Of course, Paul is a really good example of these things. Or Joseph, right? He's a really good example of these things. These are just normal people. Right? Just normal people doing the same kinds of things that we can do. All right? Boaz is a great example of just being a guy, right, who was faithful and did what he was supposed to do. Right? He never ruled the world, right? He was never anything like that. He had enough money. Don't know if he was wealthy or not, but he had enough money and he shared it. And he was faithful. And he made it into the Bible. Right? He made it into the genealogy of Jesus. And Ruth, what huge thing did she do? Well, she was just faithful to her mother-in-law. Right? Faithful to the family. And served her. All right? And then she made it into the genealogy of Jesus. All right? Not all of us can be Paul or Elijah. Right? We're not all called for something like that. But we can all, without exception, be a Boaz. Right? We can all, without exception, be a Ruth. Because we don't need anything special, right, to do that. We just need to be faithful. It's time to be dismissed. But yes, Jim. What's that?
Who wrote the book of Ruth? You know?
Don't know. Doesn't say. So it's time for us to be dismissed. All right? Think about that. Maybe you can't ever be Elijah. All right? I will never be Elijah. But you can be a Boaz and you can be Ruth. Okay? So consider and ponder. And be that.